to the billionaire conservative who says, you know, he's had it too, with Democrats playing the same old spending game, but more, get this, Republicans playing the same talk a good game. And Wayne Hughes Jr. says it's time they all look at that clock or just get clocked. Wayne, a real pleasure having you.
Thank you.
But neither side does, do they?
No, they don't. And it is a long incumbency and the laziness that comes from it.
What happened? Is it just a collective indifference? No one really is surprised by it, but everyone knows what has to be done, but they don't do it. Why not?
Well, I think that from the Democratic standpoint, I think that they do believe in this, and from a Republican...
So this congressman who was talking about more taxes, he's just echoing that view.
Absolutely. He believes that that it's the government's money when they call for it, and the rest of us can live underneath their thumb. The Republicans lack courage. They lack imagination.
But what happened to that courage? They had a backbone when the likes of Paul Ryan, you know, you could dispute what he was doing with Medicare, whether he's throwing Granny off a cliff or not, but at least he was addressing those runaway costs. And now the same measures that he proposed for that are rejected in the House by Republicans who are afraid to bring it even up for a vote for fear it's going to hurt them in the midterms.
Well, that's right. I mean, there's a lot of safe seats on the Republican side. Why rock anything? Why rock the boat? The Republicans lack the stamina, I think, to go ahead and see the fight through, because it's not going to be a quick fight. I mean, guys go to Washington, and that's sort of how I started my journey. I went to Washington to go ahead and do good, and the first thing I noticed was it's impossible to hear outside the Beltway.
It is, isn't it?
Whether you want to or you don't. And so people who want to do the right thing, the 82 congressmen and congresswomen that came in at the last wave, they got swallowed up.
They get beat, the whole verb beaten out of them, don't they?
Yeah, well, they just got swallowed up, and they get into committees, and I mean, Washington is sort of the last top-down model.
Yeah, that's a very good analogy. I'm wondering, too, from your vantage point, do you think, you know, you're kind of like a rags to riches story. The last thing you pictured probably has been where you are today and so successful and so wealthy. Could you have done that now? A kid starting out?
Well, I think that you need to sort of take a step back, okay, that was my family that went this
way. But you
way.
built
and,
big time on it.
Well, no, I had...
Could you do that again?
There's two ways to the top, okay? You do it yourself, or you grab a hold of somebody that's going there, okay? And I had...
Well, Donald Trump took it to a new level.
Yeah.
You took it to a new level.
Well, I think...
Would it be as easy?
More president than I need.
Would it be as easy?
No, no. I mean, just a simple building permit. I mean, if you're in New York or in California, a building permit could take you a year and a half, 2 years, 2.5 years. You have businesses in the fast food industry in California that are going to Texas. You have Governor Perry coming to California, you know, on a frequent flyer plan and lifting businesses
and stealing
out.
that business somewhere?
Yeah, and saying...
Does that make a difference to guys like you if a governor like Governor Perry comes over and says, look, I get for much lower cost tax environment, much lower regulatory environment, come to Texas?
Well, he has an advantage, okay, but I will tell you that I don't know of any Californian that has left California and ended up happy about it years later. I mean, California is a wonderful place to be.
It's a very expensive place.
Yes, it is. It is a very expensive place to be. But, you know, I was born and raised in California, and it's still there's still some fight in me.
All right, but it is a different environment. Now, I want to pick your brain a little bit. But, you know, Jeff Bezos of Amazon is buying the Washington Post, $250 million. That, we're told, is actually a bargain basement price for this online bargaineer. It's not Amazon buying it, it's just Jeff. But it follows on the heels of big-name publications being sold off on the cheap. Boston Globe, the New York Times virtually lost all its money on it. And the same with Newsweek, being sold for the price of maybe a loaded ham sandwich.
Yeah,
I'm exaggerating.
that one didn't work out too well.
Not at all. But what is happening here?
Well, I don't know. I think it's interesting that Jeff Bezos would buy the Washington Post. He's never stood on a corner and yelled out, "Here's what I think." He seems to be a thoughtful...
Why do you think he did it?
Well, he's in the information business. I mean, he sells books for a living, so I got to think that there's a tie-in there. And the Washington Post is read. It is respected. It is derised. It is cursed. It is praised. But it's not irrelevant. And so if you want relevancy, that's one way to get it.
Do guys like you have a lot of money to spend? need that? Does Jeff Bezos need that? Is there something about him that says, all right, I've got to have this influence? Remember the old days of Bill Gates with MSNBC to be the force of the new information age? Then that Microsoft divorced itself from that.
Yeah, I can't speak for Jeff. I think that, I was raised with the axiom that the whale gets harpooned when he comes up to blow. So it's better
So you had no such interest in major publications?
Better to run silent and run deep. I think that the reason that I'm here and what I want to bring to the table is sort of the things that I've learned as a result of going to Washington, realizing that it wasn't the highest and best use of my time, coming back to my state, my home, and trying to move the needle in areas that the government probably should, but is either unwilling.
But see, what bothers me, Wayne, is when guys like you look at that and say, I want no part of Washington, I want no part of this whole political world, then some of our finest minds, and you kind of are very modest about it, family or otherwise, divorce themselves from the process and say the hell with it. And at least you guys know how to look at a ledger, you know to look at a spreadsheet, and you know the difference between that and guys who spread the sheet.
Well, I think there's a lot of ways to serve, and I don't want to take anything away from anybody who's decided to go ahead and execute that service in the realm of politics. For me, it didn't seem to be a good fit.
But when you look at what's happening to the country, and you look what both sides are doing to the country, and you look at us ignoring $2-3 billion added to our debt every day in this country,
it worries me a great deal. It worries me a great deal because we're a people divided. And at the end of the day, we can pretend that we're having this fight in a vacuum, but we're not. The rest of the world is looking at us. Most of the world would be quite happy to take whatever they could from us, and we're busy, not cooperating with one another, throwing rocks at one another, and I think that time has got to come to an end if we're going to be able to right the ship and get this great country. I mean, the idea that the republic and their government doesn't work, I think, is more a reflection of the people that are going there, and not necessarily the system itself.
I hope you're right. I think you're right. Well, unless guys like you give it a go, I don't know if we'll ever make it right. Wayne Hughes, Jr., thank you very, very much.
Oh, thank you for having me, Neil. It's a pleasure.
All right, as Wayne and I were just discussing,